Hello everybody and welcome to a new series. What if Izuku Midoriya was the Avatar? The first episode of this series coincides with my birthday, so happy birthday to future me because I'm recording this from the past. If you enjoy this series, please don't forget to leave a like, subscribe if you're new, and maybe check out my Discord if you want. I also want to thank Bitofaboomer for making the thumbnail for this video. It's awesome and I love it. All that said, please enjoy the video and make sure to stick to the end when I speak about stuff. So yeah, enjoy. A long time ago, the world was mostly at peace. Then, everything changed when a bioluminescent child was born in China. After that, the supernatural became normal and the world was thrust into a period of unrest. During the period where the world tried to adapt to the new norm, a boy, one like any other, had the lives of his parents taken away from him by a fire that was started by one of these new superpowered beings. He was a normal kid when at the age of 14 he was forced to fend for himself. Watching his parents die like that made him feel weak, powerless. He'd lost the support in his life that he needed. To rectify this, he went out into the world seeking a new meaning for his life, seeking power. He found what he was looking for when he encountered a man named All For One. "Tell me, what is it you seek exactly?" All For One asked, presented with the now 16-year-old child. "Power," the boy answered, full of hatred at the world. "The power to burn all my enemies like the fire that took my parents from me." "Very well," All For One said, a huge grin forming on his face. "But what do I get in return? You must understand how valuable a power is. What do you have that I could want?" "I only have my own life," the boy answered, thinking that what he wanted most would not be given to him. "Very well then. In exchange for your undying loyalty, I will grant you the power you seek. Do you accept?" All For One asked, looking at the boy. Without hesitation he answered, "Yes," causing the grin on All For One's face to widen. He stretched out his hand to grab the boy's head. Moments later, the boy felt a surge of power. "It is done. Your life is now in my hands to do what I please," All For One said, while the boy ignited a small flame in his hand. The power he had just been given was called Omni Elementa, a power which allowed him to control the 4 basic elements: fire, air, water, and earth. All this was at his disposal. He used his new power in service of All For One. For 12 years, he worked for him without question, but that changed as well. He had spoken to his new master's brother, who after a couple conversations, managed to change his mind. He came to realize the amount of atrocities he had committed, leaving many to suffer the same fate he had suffered as a child. Regret set in his mind, regret which led him to rebel against the master that had given him his power. One night, he made his way through the facility and tried to free his old master's brother, but was found out by another one of All For One's servants. A battle ensued, one which claimed his life. My, it seems one of my favorite puppets has developed a conscience," All For One said, looking at his old servant who was bleeding out on the floor. His legs and one of his arms ripped out. "My Kaikon, what a disappointment you turned out to be." All For One turned to his other servant and ordered his brother to be taken back to his room. After his brother was taken, All For One kneeled down to face his old servant. "I must say, I have to thank you. Now I know how problematic my little brother can be. I'll have to find some way to keep him in line," All For One said, a grin on his face. Seeing him for his true self outraged Kaikon. He was full of hatred, but more than ever before he was full of regrets. With his last strength, he reached his last remaining limb to All For One. Seeing this, one of his servants prepared to attack, but All For One ordered against it. Kaikon grabbed All For One by the collar and with his dying breath said, "Kill you. I promise. See you dead." All For One chuckled, standing up. He then slammed his fist into Kaikon's chest, grabbing his heart. "I'd like to see you try," All For One said as Kaikon passed away. Izuku let out a gasp, waking up from what seemed like a nightmare. "Is everything alright, Izuku?" his mother asked, coming into the room after her son's unrest woke her up. He died, Mom. I saw it," the little boy said, tears streaming down his face. A sense of regret laid inside him. Inko walked to her son's side and hugged him, comforting the crying 4-year-old. "Shh, it was just a nightmare," she whispered into her son's ear. Once he had calmed down and gone back to sleep, she returned to her room, going back to Sleepsville herself. A couple days later, Izuku was playing hide-and-seek with his friends in the woods near their homes. He knew the perfect spot to hide and decided to go there. While crossing the log that acted as a bridge over a creek, Izuku slipped, falling headfirst down to the creek's rocky shore. He closed his eyes and extended his arms to brace himself for impact, but it never came. Wondering why he hadn't hit the ground, Izuku opened his eyes, only to realize that he was using a quirk. He was sustaining himself with a stream of air, levitating above the ground. Izuku's eyes widened in amazement as a huge smile appeared on his face. This resulted in him losing concentration and falling face first to the ground. He recuperated quickly and looked at his hands excited. For the next few minutes, Izuku did all he could to use his quirk again, but he didn't manage to. "Found you, Deku," Bakugo shouted after spotting him. "God, you're pathetic. You didn't even hide." Izuku didn't care that he lost. He was too excited. While Bakugo searched for the others, Izuku kept playing around, trying to use his power again. It was unrefined and he had no idea what he was doing, but he did manage to create a small gust of wind. Hearing the good news, his mother decided to take him to the doctor to get his quirk evaluated and registered. There, it was dubbed Wind Spirit by the doctor. Midoriya loved and admired heroes. He knew he wanted to become one. He needed to become one, so he trained. He had a power he could use, so he practiced with it. Things changed when he saw Bakugo in action. He soon learned that power alone wouldn't be enough to keep up, so he asked his mother to sign him up to some martial arts classes. His mother obliged and signed him up to a course she thought would be fun for him that she saw was being taught at the local gym. Over a couple years, Izuku trained in the arts of Baguazan, learning how to fight. He even incorporated the movements into his quirk usage, as they allowed for more fluidity. At age 12, he got into a fight with Bakugo at school. During this small battle, a new development happened. Izuku managed to deflect many of Bakugo's explosions using his quirk, but he managed to stop one and use the flames against his opponent, which surprised Bakugo. At that point, the teachers intervened, setting the two boys apart. For fighting with their quirks at school, they were each suspended for 3 days. During this time, Izuku convinced his mother to take him to a quirk doctor to re-examine his quirk. His mother obliged after hearing what happened. Izuku went through multiple tests where his quirk was expanded upon and dissected. The doctors reached the conclusion that he could manipulate the 4 basic elements, so they renamed his quirk Elemental Spirit. After this development, Izuku started practicing with his quirk more. He now had 3 other elements to train and practice with. As he practiced, he started having more and more dreams about different people. In one, he was a librarian. In another, he was a chef. In another, he was the bodyguard of a villain. And in another, he was a fireman. Some lived longer, others had their lives cut short. They were different in every way imaginable. The only thing that they had in common was their quirk. Izuku had his sights set on UA High, a prestigious school for heroes. So as the time to enter the school drew closer, he started upping his game, leading his rival Katsuki Bakugo to do the same. Izuku had learned a lot from his teachers, but decided to move martial arts schools to learn a more popular style, Kung Fu. Eventually, the day of the UA entrance exam arrived. Eager to get into the school, Izuku woke up early, went through his morning routine and left the house with plenty of time to spare. He made his way to the school of his dreams. Once he arrived, he stopped at the gates for a moment to take it all in. He was about to walk into the school of his dreams, the school where his idol had trained and studied. This was the first step to becoming a hero. Before he could take that step into the school, Bakugo came by, bumping into him. "Out of the way, Deku," he said. "Sorry," Izuku responded. He was now snapped out of his state of contemplation. He then shouted words of encouragement at his longtime rival. "Good luck, Kachan!" "Yeah, whatever," Kachan responded, heading towards the school. The boy's words were harsh, but Izuku knew the sentiment that he was conveying. The moment had passed, so Izuku got himself together and eagerly walked towards the school himself, ready for the trial he was about to undergo. After taking the written exam for the school, he went to President Mike's explanation of the practical exam. After the rules and conditions for the exam were explained to the participants, they were divided into groups and sent to their respective battle centers. They passed by the changing rooms, where Izuku changed into a green tracksuit, putting a smallish bag of water on his back. Once they arrived at the battle centers, they had to wait a bit in order for the exams to begin. Right outside the gates of Battle Center B, Izuku found himself preparing. He was stretching while breathing to get ready for the exam. His calm was then ruined by someone shouting. "Right, let's start!" President Mike shouted. "There are no countdowns in real battles, so go, go, go!" Izuku looked around, seeing all the other contestants running into the arena. He didn't want to be left behind, so he ran behind them, propelling himself by manipulating the air around him. He quickly overtook most of his opponents. There were many enemies ahead of him, so in a fluid motion he stopped running, jumped into the air. When he fell back to the ground, he slammed his foot, creating a fissure around 3 different enemy robots. One was swallowed by the ground and crushed by it shortly after, while the other 2 just toppled over. Izuku then threw his leg forward, sliding it across the ground. As if responding to the motion, a column shot out from the ground, propelling Izuku into the air. He flew at the 2 robots that were readjusting themselves. Before they could, Izuku cut through the air with his hand, sending a cut made out of air at the 2 one-pointers that managed to break through their armors. "Alright, that's 5 points right off the bat," he said to himself upon landing. He then started running again, using the air around him to once again enhance his movement. He rushed at the next villain, slipping under him and shooting his water supply at it, freezing the circuitry inside the 3-point robot. As he retrieved the water from his fallen enemy, a 1-point robot rushed at Izuku, surprising him. For a moment, he lost concentration, dropping most of the water into the ground. But he managed to erect a barrier in front of himself that the robot had crashed into. He spotted a 2-pointer in the distance attacking another contestant who was occupied with his own adversary. Wanting to protect him, Izuku planted himself in the ground and lifted his arms. Reacting to his commands, the ground jumped up and a wall appeared right behind the contestant, surprising him. The villain stopped in its tracks. It reevaluated the situation and set its sights on Izuku. Midoriya put his hands in front of him and pulled them towards him, causing the wall to come towards him as well, bringing the robot along with it. Once the robot was disconcerted, Izuku shot his arms in different directions, causing a sinkhole to appear under it, swallowing the robot up. Izuku then put his arms back together with the hole closing as a result. In little time, he'd already accumulated 10 points, still having time left in the exam. Pull it off, he thought, a tone of relief present in his mind. I was sure I'd screw it up somehow. The boy then launched himself into the air, using the building next to him to propel himself higher into the sky. His objective was to land on one of the buildings to get a good view over the battlefield. Once he got a good enough height, he started gliding down to land on the rooftop. He stretched out his leg for a proper landing, but failed to balance his weight correctly and fell back. Crap! I should have practiced more. I knew I'd make some mistake, but I thought it'd be with earth or water, not air, Izuku thought as he fell towards the ground. Now I'm gonna die because of some stupid mistake, he thought, closing his eyes and putting his hands in front of him. He was too far from the buildings to catch himself, and hitting any type of ground would hurt a lot, not to mention disable him for the remainder of the exam. He tried slowing himself down with the air, but in the position he was in that was impossible. He knew this would be the end of the exam for him, but right before he hit the ground, his eyes still closed, he felt someone touch him on his back, throwing him forwards a bit. The falling sensation that he was feeling moments ago just disappeared. Wondering what was happening, Izuku opened his eyes, only to see a girl catching her breath from the jump she had just performed. She put her hands together and gravity kicked back in, causing Izuku to hit the ground. Are you okay? She asked, putting her hands to her mouth for a moment, feeling her stomach slightly upset. Yeah, thanks, Izuku responded, surprised that someone would take time off of their exam to help him. Don't mention it, the girl said as she focused her attention back on the exam. Izuku looked at her go for a moment, but realized he was losing too much time being surprised. Gotta focus, he said, slapping himself lightly on the cheeks while getting up. He spent the next few minutes running around the battle center, destroying the robots he came across. To accomplish this task, he primarily used his airbending while also using his earthbending as support. He had lost his water supply, which made him unable to reliably use that in combat. 2 minutes remaining on the exam. At this point, Izuku had accumulated a total of 41 points. He was about to continue. He still wanted to rack up a couple more points. But before he could be on his way, a giant robot appeared before him. Seeing that giant robot surprised him for a moment, but then President Mike's explanation came across his mind. I gotta remember, that thing's not worth any points. It's best if I just ignore it and accumulate a couple more points, Izuku thought to himself. He started running in the opposite direction of the robot along with most of the other contestants. While running, he spotted a girl trapped under some debris created by the robot's appearance. The girl seemed to be struggling, trying to get out of harm's way. It's that girl from before. The one who saved me, Izuku thought as he kept running. But I don't have time to focus on her. I gotta use the time I have left to get more points. I'm sure someone else will help her. As he ran, something just snapped inside Izuku, like a switch being flipped on. If I do that, then how can I hope to call myself a hero? Izuku thought, stopping his tracks. He turned his attention to the giant robot behind him and started running towards it. The robot was getting too close, so in order to buy time, Izuku lifted his right leg. He then slammed it against the ground while shooting his arms apart, causing a sinkhole to appear in front of him, which would at least buy him a moment. Give me a second, I'll get you out of there, Izuku said, turning his attention to the girl stuck under the rubble. He planted himself on the ground and in a fluid motion moved his body forward. The earth that had the girl pinned flew from on top of her, heading towards the robot that was overcoming the sinkhole, followed by a small gust of wind. Are you alright? Can you stand? Izuku asked, extending his hand to the girl. I think I twisted my ankle, the girl said, struggling to get up. Izuku carefully put his arm around the girl and helped her walk. They couldn't go too quickly, but the robot was stuck, struggling to get out of the sinkhole. Once they had gotten enough distance, Izuku carefully placed the girl back on the ground. Are you alright? He asked. Yeah, she answered. Thank you. Don't mention it, Izuku replied, making her remember who it was. Knowing that the girl would be fine, Izuku started running, wanting to at least get one more point, but before he could even take his second step, the exam's ending was announced. Well, guess I timed that poorly. I thought I still had a bit more time left, Izuku said, slightly disappointed, but he didn't regret his decision. The exam had come to an end, so the cleanup began. The nurse walked onto the battlefield, healing those who needed it. After everything was wrapped up and the students changed back into their regular clothes, they returned home. A week passed. Izuku, of course, applied to other hero courses, passing most exams he took, but there was only one school he really cared about getting into. "Izuku, it's here!" his mom said, stumbling into the room. Finally, the time had come. The school he'd wanted to get into all his life. This letter would contain the answer of if he got into the school of his dreams. Nervously, Izuku grabbed the letter from his mother's hands. "Thanks," he told her with a smile, trying to hide how nervous he really was. Inko left the room, leaving her son to his own devices. Once she left the room, Izuku returned to his desk. The suspense was killing him, so he ripped the envelope apart, wanting to see the letter inside. Upon ripping the letter, a small holodisk fell on the desk, turning on. "I am here as a projection," All Might said from the projection, surprising Izuku. "Wait, All Might? I thought this letter was from UA," Izuku said, looking back at the letter that was inside the envelope. "You may be asking yourself what I'm doing here," All Might continued. "Regardless of the events that led to this point, know that I'll be working at UA as a teacher this coming semester. And as the new teacher, I've been put in charge of the acceptance letters. Now let's get to it, shall we?" All Might said after a brief pause. "I am here to inform you that you've passed your written test. Along with that, you've acquired a total of 41 combat points. But that's not all. No. Aside from combat points, there exists another metric that we use to get into the hero course. That being..." He paused for dramatic effect, hitting a button on a remote. "Rescue points!" he said as the results of the exam came on screen. There, Izuku could see he also earned 28 rescue points, securing third place. By helping other contestants and saving the girl, you've shown a truly heroic spirit. That, coupled with your impressive quirk, has earned you the third spot in the rankings. Congratulations, Izuku Midoriya. You are now part of a hero academia," All Might said before the video shut off. The letter fell from Izuku's hand as tears of joy started streaming down his face. I did it," he whispered to himself, a sense of relief coming along with those tears. All his hard work was about to pay off. He successfully took his first step in becoming a hero. And that's the end of the video. As always, if you enjoyed, please leave a like, subscribe, and maybe even check out my Discord, link in the description below. You can also stay around a bit more, hearing me talk about why I did certain decisions and certain stuff. So, first of all, I want to thank Bitofaboomer again, or Bitbot on Discord, for making the great thumbnail for this video. I really like it, how it turned out, man. And yeah. So, I was originally going to make this, I did a previous version of this with Kid Zeus as a collab. He deleted his part, so I had to delete it myself. So, when making this version, I was going to do what I did last time, which is, okay, person reincarnates, Izuku's after Korra, but we're doing this cross-world interchange thing. This time someone said, "Hey, when you make this, make it so that I look forward to seeing what you do with the previous avatars in the MHA world." And my thought was, yes, I can do that. It's not what I had planned, but I can do that. I can change the story like this. And this kind of gives them personal motivation for Izuku to go up against All For One eventually. I mean, both One For All and the Avatar Quirk elemental spirits are kind of meant to clash with All For One at one point. Except he knows more about One For All than elemental spirit because, yeah. because he didn't know that the guy could reincarnate. Who knew? Yes. The guy, Zaisho Senshi Kaikon, I also have his name written down in kanji. I forgot totally what it meant, but kind of one of the kanjis meant regret, because the guy is very regretful of his life, and the other one meant first warrior. Yeah, Saishon Senshi means first warrior, and Kaikon means regretful. So the regretful first warrior. Yeah, props to Horikoshi for coming up with all the names. I don't know much Japanese, so yeah, it's very hard for me to do. But I still kind of like the name, although it's a bit long. I'm not gonna lie, when I read that first scene, it kind of made me cry a bit. It made me tear up. Yes. So yeah, it's a bit of a shorter video compared to other part ones. The whole thing kind of breezes through Izuku's childhood, kind of glossing it over, because I feel like the main focus should be the first life and how he gets into the school. We'll get a bit more flashbacks and stuff maybe later on. At a certain point, he'll connect truly with the past spirits and be able to talk to them, kind of like he was in the show. The avatar state and all that will come. Even sub-elemental bending will come eventually. That's something I have planned in the future. For now, I hope you enjoyed this part. There's little else for me to say, aside from happy birthday, future me, from you, 14 days ago? Enjoy being 19 years old. Yes. Future me's very old, guys. Wish me a happy birthday. You can always wish me a happy birthday in the comments. Yay! I honestly don't like titling birthday special or the special. I'll just release the video and be like, yes, it's meant as this, but I'm not gonna outright state it. So I can't think of much else to say. So like, subscribe, enjoy the video. Hope you enjoyed it. And until next time, everyone, have an absolutely, which is next week. The next video of this series will come out next Tuesday. Until next time, everyone, have an absolutely fantastic day. Bye!